The first step to getting a good polish on a guitar body is to sand smooth the surface. I start by dry sanding with 220 grit sandpaper and then finish with 320 grit sandpaper. You have to be really careful around the edges, otherwise you could sand through to the bare wood. So I usually do it by hand and sand very, very lightly. The goal is to eliminate any shiny spots in the surface. Next, I begin wet sanding, starting by using 400 grit paper. Then I'll work my way up through 600, 1000, 1500, and then finally 2000 grit sandpaper. Some areas are a little bit more difficult to get to, so you have to hand sand them. Cutouts around the horns are usually the most difficult area to reach. In between each grit, I have to completely wipe down the surface of the body with a wet, clean rag. I want to remove every single bit of grit residue so that it won't contaminate the next finer grit of sandpaper. Sand through is inevitable, but it's fairly easy to fix. I just wipe on a very thin coat of the varnish, let it dry, and then wipe on another. I'll do this 2 or 3 times until I get it thick enough. Now I'm ready to polish. I like to use 3M's Finesse It rubbing compound. This stuff works miracles on finishes. First I just wipe it on with a rag, swirl it around to get good coverage, and then before it dries, I'll go back over it and polish it out using a foam polishing pad on my drill. I love these foam polishing pads because no matter how hard you press, you can't melt or burn through the finish. Just as it was with sanding, some spots are hard to get to, so you'll have to do them by hand. Now that's what I call a shine. At this point I'm ready to bolt the neck on. First thing I do is I clamp it very tightly in place to make sure there's good contact between the neck and the body. Next I tighten the screws as tight as I can get them. After tightening all the screws, I can then remove the clamp, and if everything tightened down correctly, there shouldn't be any gaps between the neck and the body. See, no gaps. At this stage, it's a good idea to protect the fretboard. I like to use tung oil. I'll wipe on a liberal coat of it, let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then wipe off the excess. Then a few hours later, I'll probably go back and add a second coat. And now it's starting to look like a real guitar.